everyone. Welcome back to the Tech Show. I believe this is episode 4, right, Levi?
That's right. Episode 4. We're in a rhythm.
Yeah, that's right. Got here with me my co-host, Levi Lais, and I'm Sean Ong. And today we are going to be talking about what is the Metaverse, the difference between the Metaverse and Web3 and Web 3.0. All of this sounds like should be the same thing, right, Levi? But we're finding, I think it's actually not.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So everybody sort of has their own definition, what they kind of like, oh, Metaverse, I think it means this, or Web3, I think it means that. A lot of people get Web3 and Web 3.0 confused. Those are two separate things.
Yep.
And so... yeah, the unique thing about this particular episode is that we're not coming in with answers. We're actually going to sort of... the goal of the conversation is by the end of the conversation to sort of have a definition for these three things for us and our community as we talk about it. So the funny thing about people, engineers, etc. in our field is that everybody just sort of believes that, like, well, I have the definition and I know exactly what that definition is. But I think this is going to be a little bit it's very interesting. We did a little bit of looking into it real quick right before, and it's like it's not what we expected, that's for sure. So
it was interesting because I don't know if you saw Google's their AI presentation where they introduced Bard. But there's a concept there that they call Nora, which is that there's no one right answer. And so they had this whole system of like how their AI answers questions that have Nora, right? No one right answer. Yeah. And so I kind of feel like there might be a little bit of that going on with Web3, Web 3.0. I think that we might find that there's a lot of opinions out there. And just like in the early days of VR, everyone was trying to figure out, like, what is it called? Is this called XR? Is it called mixed reality? Is it called VR? Is it called AR? So there was a time when people were VR, AR, MR, XR engineers on all of their titles. And then slowly, like, the industry started consolidating around the term XR. Nobody really forced it. It just kind of like happened organically. I think mostly because people didn't want to have all of the different acronyms out there. So in the same way, like Web3, Web 3.0, we might find that there's not really a definition, but we might like slowly start to like coalesce around a common definition. Yeah. But we'll see like where things are today, what some articles say, what ChatGPT says. And I guess but before we dive too deep, kind of zooming back out a little bit, one of the top searches on Google is, what is the difference between the metaverse and the multiverse?
The multiverse. That actually tripped me up a little bit when the Spider-Man came out. The one with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Into the Spider-Verse.
What's
the difference between the Spider-Verse and the multiverse? All these verses. Right? But I think so that's pretty funny. I remember chuckling really hard the first time I saw that as being like one of the top search results. I'm like, we're doomed.
Right. I kind of remember first hearing Metaverse and thinking they were saying multiverse. Like in my brain it was synonymous until obviously we get into that. Yeah. And now it's like our day job. But
exactly. Go ahead. Oh, you got screen share on? All right.
Yes, I just wanted to pull up our companion here, our
nice.
Our crutch, our everyday crutch for everything we do content related.
So powerful, by the way. I don't know about you, but I use it almost every day.
Oh yeah. Like there's the number of use cases are so high. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah. I don't know like how representative you or I are, but I feel like my Google searches have been cut in half or maybe like down to a quarter of what it used to be. And so I'm wondering like if that's a trend that's happening to everyone, like that's pretty big for Google. Like that's a big dent, right? Yeah. For me, it's not like, oh, I still do 90% of my searches on Google. It's like, it's down a lot.
Yeah. I find that if I'm looking for something like a formula for an Excel spreadsheet or looking to have like content rephrased in a way that sounds a little bit better. I'm using it for that kind of stuff. Things that would be really, really, really tedious to find, searching all through Google to all the websites and forums and all these things. Anything that you would go to a forum for, ChatGPT is already way better at. But you kind of have to know what you're doing as well. Like very frequently it's off by a little bit, and then I have to kind of like get it the rest of the way. And I don't know if that has to do with the quality of the prompts. I don't know if that has to do with the quality of the data. It's trained through 2021, right? So we're months into like, anything in the last 2 months just isn't in there, So it's kind of a, it's still sort of like a screwdriver, whereas Google's a hammer, And so if you have a Phillips head problem, you go to ChatGPT because you can figure that out very quickly, and it saves a lot of headache.
Yeah, 100%. So what are we going to ask ChatGPT here?
So I'm wondering if your prompt game is better than my prompt game, since I think you're probably using it a little bit more than I am. Do you have the ability to share in your... we're using Riverside for this
I
chat.
should, If you want me to share my screen, I can.
Yeah, do you want to hop into ChatGPT and drive the ChatGPT part? I'm gonna stop sharing and we'll share yours.
All right, so let's do this. All right, let me know if you can see it on here.
Ooh, there it is. Hopefully we're not outing you on your.
Yeah, you'll see all my history in here. Playing FFT as audio, Google Ads conversion strategy, cheese fondue recipe. Don't tell my wife for Valentine's Day we had AI create our Valentine's Day dinner. It was actually great.
I love
Best cheese fondue I ever had.
Love it. Yeah. AI generated fondue. We are in the future. We are in the future.
Yeah, I'm using it for all sorts of things. Safe versus convertible notes. Yeah, this is a whole bunch of stuff in here. All right, so what are we gonna ask here? Do we want to ask it? So what I find is that like sometimes it can give really long-winded answers that I hate. Like you can see over here, I just asked it about what's Web 1.0 versus 2.0 versus 3.0. That a fifth grader can understand. And so I gave these, which is still like maybe a little bit more than I want to read sometimes. So it kind of depends on like how much of a rush you're in, how much detail you want. But when I typed this in, it's like Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, it did give a definition. But what you discovered, which wasn't on here, the context that this didn't give, is that there might be a difference between Web 3.0 and Web 3. Which is super confusing.
Yeah.
So I can ask it really quick. Is there a difference between Web 3 and Web 3.0? And we'll see. It says terms are used interchangeably, but they can have slightly different meanings depending on context. Web 3 is sometimes used to refer to a decentralized web, so I think that kind of matches what you were finding earlier, whereas where applications are built on decentralized protocols. On the other hand, Web 3 is used to describe the next generation of the internet, which is expected to be more intelligent, more connected, more user-friendly than the current version of the internet. So IoT, AI, VR, and AR. So basically kind of like some of the things that we've been talking about on this podcast, right? We've talked about AI, we've talked about XR. So would it be safe to say that Web 3 might be referring to like the blockchain / crypto web, and Web 3.0 is just all of the edge tech?
Yeah. So that's I did some research quite a few months back and was deep into Web 3.0, thinking I was looking into Web 3. It was like, whoa, this is crazy, because Web 3.0 has Metaverse in it. It has NFTs. It has all of these different components. So I found a website that I've never used before, right? So who knows if the quality is or what their sources are, etc. But they've got good thinking on it, and it seems pretty straightforward. They break it down in a way that I am familiar with. That a couple months ago, I was looking into some of the Web3 stuff and got down a Web 3.0 rabbit trail before I realized that those are two different things. I think Web 3.0 like has Web 3 in it. If that makes sense.
That's what it's sounding like for sure.
Yeah, so they define Web 1.0 as from 1990 to 2005, basic web pages, HTML, e-commerce, Java, and JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
And then from '06 until now, Web 2.0 was social media, user-generated content, corporations monetizing that content.
The dark side of it.
Yeah, right. The motivating factor for Web3. Mobile access, high quality camera and video, apps. There's an app for that, iPhone, right? High speed communication and global internet access. And then Web 3.0 they're putting as imminent, but it's also, it's just happening, right? Like we're in the beginning.
We're in the transition period for sure.
Yeah. Semantic web, DApps, or DApps.
Yeah, decentralized apps.
Yep. Users monetize their data. NFTs, AR and VR, permissionless blockchains, artificial intelligence, and interoperability.
Yeah.
So if somebody was like, what's Web 3.0, I'd probably focus on decentralization, artificial intelligence, AR, VR. Like that's really the umbrella, right?
Yeah.
And Web 2.0 has always just sort of been this shorthand for it has a back end, has users, they log in, access anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And Web 1.0, HTML and e-commerce, basic web pages. So it's kind of interesting how they each sort of wrap the previous and extend it. But, Web 3.0 just takes a bit of a left turn, from instead of it being mobile access, it's AR, VR access. So it is just a shift in where you're engaging with technology. Yeah. And instead of apps, you have metaverses, right? I think that's maybe, if we're trying to define things, we can look up what, ChatGPT and Google say a metaverse is, but in my reality, it's a 3-dimensional app.
Yeah.
Apps have rewards, have coins, have points. Metaverses have cryptocurrencies. It's a very easy way to explain. It's a 3D, it's an app that you go inside of.
Yeah.
Maybe.
100%. No, and I'm seeing actually like my kids, they spend a lot of time playing Roblox. Essentially Roblox is a metaverse. They're on there. They've got friends on there. I think that maybe the very beginnings of that could have been Minecraft for the previous generation, right? Where you're going on and joining these servers that have a whole bunch of people. And so I think as these generations are growing up, they're becoming more comfortable with the idea that, you'll live in this virtual world, not necessarily with a headset, but just even on a screen without even knowing it. And you're walking around as this avatar doing stuff. So that's kind of interesting. I've got a little bit of a potentially like maybe controversial take on one thing that I would push to Web 4.0, which is AR VR. And that's with me being in AR VR, right? So VR is great. It's, Quest is doing some amazing things for gaming and stuff like that. It's kind of like Xbox or PlayStation is where I would kind of, not nearly as big, of course, but it's where I would put that right now. But I think for AR, VR as a tech to really participate in the next generation of web, I hate to say this, but I think that we may need AR glasses, like legit AR glasses you can wear out anywhere, right? Because if you're just having a device at home, I just don't see people using it as like part of the next generation of web. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong because I'm in the industry. But it feels to me like that part of it, maybe like AI is already here. It's gonna like it's taking the world by storm. I think AI is definitely gonna be part of Web3 for sure. Decentralized apps, MetaMask wallets, crypto, all that stuff. It's already here. It's growing. I feel like it's maybe, I don't know. Yeah, those two things for sure. But AR, VR, yeah, I think for it to be like a daily use thing that you're getting value from every day and participating in every day, I don't feel like it's going to be a headset you wear that isolates you. I think it's going to be more of AR glasses. I don't know. What do you think on that? More of an opinion piece.
Yeah, my take is pass through VR is where AR ends up. I don't think that AR.
You mean long term or
long term? Long term. So, like, they've tried flip phones, they've tried small phones, they've tried huge phones, they've tried one time, Julie and I were we were in a mall in Thailand, and this guy had an iPad. It was like talking on his iPad. It was the silliest
I remember
thing.
those days. I remember seeing those.
I'm like taking a picture of it, old school camera too, but yeah, so like, we get out, we try stuff, and I think that where it settles is pass through VR. I think the form factor will be akin to a ski goggle.
But do you think people wear those in public? Like that sounds really dystopian.
Yeah, but people are comfortable with sunglasses.
Yeah, true.
Like if you and I are talking and you're wearing sunglasses and I can't see your eyes, I'm comfortable with that. So
right.
if it's unassuming and it's not recording or like collecting, let's say, data, I think that as long as there is some sort of an indication that it's in pass-through mode, not in collection mode. Like if the camera is capturing and transmitting in any way or storing in any way, there needs to be some sort of an indicator that people are familiar with, right? Otherwise, if somebody looks at me and is standing there like this, I'd be like, okay, can you put that away? So that, I think that's going to be sort of there has to be some sort of a indicator that like, this is only in pass-through mode, this is only in consumption mode, but it's not in collecting mode,
Yeah. 100%.
But I think that the tech is there. I think that the form factor can improve exponentially in the next 3 to 5 years. I think that the thickness and all these things is all addressable if the goal is really slick looking ski goggles that have a sunglasses reflective,
So you think that
vibe.
So you think that this device that we can wear in public may be part of Web 3.0, maybe like the second half of Web 3.0? I guess these generations are quite long, right? They're like 10, 15, 20 years in some cases long.
Right.
So I can see that maybe.
I think the bigger question is one of utility. Like, so if we're talking about here, let me share my screen here.
Yeah, go for it.
If you unshare, it'll let me share. This is that website.
Ooh.
Thebusinessanecdote.com,
I like a good graphic.
Right? So this is the Web3 1, 2, and 3 that they had. Let me just accept these cookies here. All right. So if you look at Web 2.0, like the functionality, the accessibility, the quality, took a massive jump forward. Right. So I had to be at home on a computer. Now I can be anywhere on my phone.
Yeah.
I don't know if 3.0 has the same jump or leap forward in utility in the form factor component of this, right?
It would be more in the knowledge component with like AI, right?
Speed, knowledge, like high speed communication and global access. Let's actually remove global access from that. High speed communication in Web 2, artificial intelligence is like taking that and it may take longer to get information back, but it'll save hours of effort, if that makes sense. Like, it has to go through all of its transforms and do its thing, which takes time, so it's not as fast as a Google search, but you're not clicking in and out of websites the whole time. So the end result is a massive amount of time saved, right? And so there's going to be a UI and a UX around that's going to be really interesting, as we start engaging with AI, but it's going to be different than the hunt and peck Google process, if that makes sense. It'll go from like typing to the talk to text that everybody's just sort of now doing because it's just so much easier to just talk to text. We're even okay with typos now because it's like, whatever, it's so much faster, right? So I think we're going to see like AI is the talk to text jump, in terms of like the effort it takes to get what we need. So I think that, if you're looking at the accessibility of information, I feel like Web3 is a step backwards in a lot of ways. But if you're talking about like processes, methods, storage, equity, like being able to like equal, like I own my data, I monetize my data, I have my model, my AI, that's my information of all of the things that I've either paid for or trained, I've got a digital replica of my voice, I have a digital replica of my belief system, I have a digital, so I can ask myself what I think,
A whole new meaning to talking to yourself now.
Exactly. And then you have this ability then to extend yourself, to auto reply in really meaningful ways that your intent is there, your engagement. So I think that there's going to be really cool things that come from some of these components that do transform how we engage. But I just don't know if AR, VR, like the metaverse is all we're really hearing about. But like so much of the tech is going to happen in the mobile space. Just like so much of Web 2.0 happened on the desktop. We have mobile and it's a lot of, it's a huge advancement. But like a lot of the 2.0 stuff was still desktop. I think we're going to see even more of it stay back in the app and the phone and the mobile and the desktop spaces. I don't know if the form factor, AR VR form factor will be as transformative in this third iteration of the web.
That makes sense. So we know like Mark Zuckerberg, right? He's like pivoting his entire company on this metaverse future. Like he's what made the term metaverse go mainstream. We all knew the term metaverse before that, but it wasn't mainstream yet. It was kind of more in our bubble, maybe a little bit outside of our bubble, but now like everyone's talking about it. So based on the statement that you just made, do you feel like Zuckerberg is taking the wrong bet? Do you think he's going to pivot at some point, or do you think he's going to keep pushing until the bitter end? Or do you think he's onto something?
I mean, he's no worse off than Nintendo. I mean, like he has a device play like that. They're going down that path. They've got a lot of like their social graph is really interesting. They've got, I mean, WhatsApp, Instagram, like those are still around. Facebook might not be as popular, but they did a good job buying their competitors. So I think that the zooming out from Facebook to something was necessary, and so whether he calls it Meta or whether he calls it A B C D E F G, Instead of alphabet, maybe he goes with maybe he goes with numeric or something. I don't know. Like, it could be whatever he wants. But I think that, like, Facebook is going to die. Like, that's not going to be a thing forever. I just don't think that form factor of social,
the social app, you're saying, Facebook,
not necessarily all social. Yeah, the actual product, Facebook.
Yeah.
Because the company is now Instagram, WhatsApp, Meta, like Oculus, that's now branded as Meta. So, Apple started out as hardware and then started doing some software. Microsoft started out as software and then started doing hardware. This is sort of Facebook started out as a website and / social and is now being hardware. I was thinking about this yesterday. Amazon's a website that sells books. And Netflix, like, runs on AWS. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that, like, these companies are basically paying this book website to host all of their stuff. Like, it's so...
Yeah.
So I think...
go
ahead.
One company that made the pivot big time, I would say even way bigger than Facebook did, not in terms of dollars, but just in terms of, like, going all in, was HTC. They used to be the biggest Android phone maker, even bigger than Samsung at one point. And they were only known for their phones. And they fully did, like, one day they did a pivot. They're like, nope, we are going to be a VR only company. And
they're VR only? I didn't know
they're pretty much VR only. I think maybe there's, like, one obscure, like, HTC phone out there. Maybe. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, they made a pivot. They're like,
just
all bets on. Yeah. And I think for them, and I think honestly everyone in the VR AR industry, it never really exploded like we all thought it would, right? And everyone still thinks or like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, still thinks it might still explode, right? But I don't know. I don't know. It's there are companies that have put all their bets on it. I think Microsoft, they didn't put all their bets on it. They put their whole foot into it, maybe not just a big toe, but a whole foot. And then now they've kind of taken it back out again since it didn't really, it didn't explode like they thought it would. So yeah, it's interesting to see the level of all-inness that different companies have gone.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, a lot of what Twitter is doing is in the decentralized NFT blockchain kind of space. A lot of what... obviously, Facebook switching to Meta and then really leaning into VR, hardware and software. You've got Microsoft was in the AR VR space and is switching. If they're going to put $10 billion into OpenAI, they are in the AI space. And they've
Very
really
firmly,
been investing in Azure, and like they've been, we've been doing Microsoft tutorials for AI related stuff for 3 years now, so they've been in this space. And I think that they were probably like, let's give this 2 years and then let's go all in on the one that looks like it has potential. And I just think that we're kind of seeing it play out in a way that I sort of expected, which is the use case of AR VR, the utility of it is just so limited.
Yeah.
It's just limited. Like you're putting a limitation on. Like, sure, you could say you're opening a portal to everything, but like you already have a portal to everything. It's your phone. Like all you're adding is the ability to wear it instead of hold it. That's the only thing that's being added by AR VR in that wearable sense. So there's a lot of value in AR. In augmented reality, whether it's through a phone or through a headset, Apple's honestly looking quite brilliant, focusing on a phone version of AR. In hindsight, it's like...
Well, what do you think about the rumors that they're going to release something at WWDC? Do you think they are?
I hope they're true, but 2020 was the year of vision, right? So, and that came and went. So I don't know. I hope that they do. I hope that they start pushing the Quest team. Like I want to see a race between Facebook and Apple in the wearable pass-through VR form factor, because I think that it
Yeah.
could get really good really fast if
So
there's some
yeah,
motivation behind it.
somebody was asking me the other day. It's actually some people from Meta. They're like, so like, what do you think? Like, if Apple were to come out with a headset, I'm like, instantly, like, if Apple came out with a headset, and let's just say they didn't do any additional innovation except bring everything from ARKit over, right? Nothing new beyond that. Instantly, they would
Yeah.
be the most formidable headset out there, because the iPad spatial mapping is like orders of magnitude faster and better than the HoloLens spatial mapping, right?
Yeah.
ARKit's got like the body like cutout feature where you can cut out bodies. It's got skeletal tracking. It's got the spatial mapping. It's got tons and tons of apps, floor finding, plane finding, like all of these things that Quest doesn't have, HoloLens doesn't have, many other devices doesn't have. It's already on ARKit. The only reason why people aren't like raving about it is because it's not a headset. But you bring all
Right.
that tech over and put it onto a headset, instantly it's like 2 generations ahead of anything else that's out there, which is kind of scary for their competitors, right? Great for Apple,
Yeah.
scary for the competitors. So,
Right.
and then that's to say they don't come up with any other innovation. That's just like you're putting everything you've already done for ARKit onto a headset.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
wow, like that's a powerful concept, to think about.
Yeah, and so I want to be clear. Like, I think that you could sit down with a good pass through headset as a programmer, for example, and because right now I've got my phone here, I've got my computer here, and I've got a screen here. And my iPad's sitting right here just in case, right? And so I feel like if you had that headset on, you could still
Yeah.
have your computer sitting right there, just like you do with your monitors and all these other things. But like
Yeah.
instead of having your monitor up, you would have your pass through AR headset you'd still see your computer. You'd be using that as your source of computation. And the headset is basically an AirPlay. Like I cast from my phone to my Roku. You'd cast from the computer to the headset, and then it would just be like massive displays. So
Yeah.
as long as it's comfortable, you're gonna
Yeah.
do that all day. Like there's no reason
Yeah.
not to. I'm wearing
Yeah.
these glasses, so if
Yeah.
it has prescriptions like they're saying it does, instantly it's a better monitor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of really, really good use cases. So I don't want to sound like I'm like pessimistic on AR VR as a platform, because I just think that they're the same. I think AR
Yeah.
and VR like merge into pass through AR, and sure, let's
Yeah,
call
I
it
agree.
extended reality.
Yeah.
And I think that that becomes like, unless you're gaming and you want to be in a world, like there's a very all of the commercial applications where you're a developer or you're working on an oil rigger, we've done apps for that, surgery, like all of these things that were leaning towards HoloLens because it was the AR thing. I just think that pass through has more immediate, more imminent utility, and I just think that it becomes so good that at some point, whenever pass through becomes actual AR, it'll be like an irrelevant footnote because of how valuable pass through has been and for how long it's been valuable. That's what I think.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So what about the rise of like NFTs in the last few years? We've seen a lot of activity, a lot of speculation, I would probably say. It's been driven a lot by speculation, but maybe on both the speculation side, but also on the tech side, like NFTs and cryptos for Web3. Do we think that it will become an increasingly large part of the way we interact with technology, the way we transact? Will important documents and stuff like that start to be on the blockchain instead of under a centralized authority? Like, what are your thoughts on that? how disruptive do you think this is all going to be?
That's a good question. I go back and forth on it. Go ahead.
I'll start out by saying NFTs have been, from what I've read online, have been extremely polarizing.
Right.
And like reading all of the different like opposing viewpoints, it usually goes something like this. Something like, what do NFTs accomplish? Right? The people who are against NFTs say, what does it accomplish? It's not a new tech. You're just making it more expensive, more complicated, because it's not, it's not centralized. Like, it doesn't need to be centralized, or it doesn't need to be not centralized. Like, it can be centralized. It can be on somebody's spreadsheet somewhere. We just need to like trust them, and like it's fine. Companies are not going to go under. They're not going to screw you over, kind of thing. And then the proponents of NFTs are like, you don't understand. Like, this makes it so that like it is decentralized. There are no evil corporations owning these things. It's completely in your control. It's in your wallet. It's like you don't have to trust anyone. It's trustless. It's like opens up a completely new paradigm shifts. It's giving power back to the people. So like you hear, or I hear these two like opposing sides of the coin. Like, where do you stand on that spectrum?
So we're tying in back to the primary concept or the question of the day. Web3, Web 3.0, Metaverse. Yeah. This then is what you're asking is like, what's Web3's role in Web 3.0? Like, because it's like there's NFTs, there's crypto, would also have like the coins, fungible and non-fungible. For anybody who's not familiar, Google it because it's complicated. No.
OpenAI it, right?
Right.
ChatGPT
it. But
doesn't have the same ring.
Right.
And I know Bing is trying to like, Microsoft's trying to like reposition Bing, but there's just something cringy about Bing. Like, I'm a Microsoft fan. I love them, but I don't know. I felt like maybe this would have been a great opportunity to rebrand or something. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think that tying it into a dead product versus like having this brand new exciting product that people are like low key, hey, that's just Bing with ChatGPT. Sure, but it's Bong or whatever his name is.
Not Bong.
Bing Bong. Oh man, yeah. So I think that Web3, the whole concept of decentralization, has a very, 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 very low amount of iteration from, like, it's a very small amount. It's a tiny step from like what existed before, because of the efficiency problem. Like, if it was the exact same cost, I think decentralization makes so much sense. So like, until they can actually solve that without giving up decentralization, it's basically just finding new names for somebody's spreadsheet. Fungible tokens, I have a dollar, a currency, $1 US is $1 US no matter which piece of paper I have. Non-fungible token says this is my piece of art that, is a one of one. It is not fungible. It's a very specific unit. And so I think NFTs, to answer your question, I think NFTs have a lot of value in terms of digital authentication of a thing. So like, if you want to track a piece of art, if you want to track something of value, then I think the NFT technology does make sense. I think that like the fungible token, the blockchain, the currency, Bitcoin replacing gold and going back to a gold standard based on Bitcoin, and I don't think that you're going to get governments to jump on board with that. I think that like,
not
efficiency wise, it's right, and it's more expensive. No. It's inefficient. Like, So I do think it's actually kind of interesting if you look at this Web 3.0 that they list NFTs and not crypto. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
like
D apps. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, so if you go decentralized organizations, right? Like, there's some merit there, maybe. But I think that there's just too much value in the flexibility and the scalability of the traditional corporation. Like if there's an automated way and all these things to then start changing it, well, then it's not. Then it loses the original utility. And so I think that like the problem with, a lot of like the NFTs, for example, is that you're trading and like if Ethereum was only used for the processing of Ethereum, that would then make sense for me. But because Ethereum is also something that people can bet on,
highly speculative.
It's highly speculative, and so because people can like bet on it and buy it and like drive the price up, it makes it so inefficient to actually use it for like the purpose of an NFT. And so I don't know if like an NFT itself should have value. I think it should be the thing
like
that the
speculative
NFT represents.
Value.
Exactly.
I think the speculative value is almost. I agree with you 100%. It's almost like the speculative value had to exist just to prove that you couldn't cheat the system, right? Like, wow, this one NFT is worth $1 million, which I think some of them are like 100 million or like some, I don't know, some crazy numbers are out there.
They
but
were. They were worth that much.
And then they crashed big time, right?
Let's see, how much did Justin Bieber lose in NFT? I just saw something where he like his $1.3 million Bored Ape plunges to 70,000.
Whoa! I mean, 70,000 is still a lot of money, but that's a big loss. That's a big loss.
That was back in November. I don't know what it's worth now, but yeah. So probably. So NFTs actually have a little bit more value now in terms of utility, but it's almost like the utility is like juxtaposed against the value, if that makes sense. So it's not,
and I think that's why people are so
tied together.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that that's why people are opposed to it. Like people are like, why would I spend so much money on a picture? You say I can't copy it, but look, I just took a screenshot of it and copied it. But yeah, it's because I think the media or the public perception on the value of NFTs is in the wrong place. It's not about the picture. It's not about the price. It should be about the utility, right? It's the fact that you can't copy it. So I think like a great use case for NFTs are like tickets, right? Like basketball tickets, right? Or tickets to go into a venue. Like you've got your crypto wallet on you, you scan it at the entrance, and it's yours. It's assigned to your wallet. No, you can't be copied, right? Nobody that at the door, they can't scan anyone else's wallet and find them having that same NFT that's been copied, right? So I think like on a technological level, a use case like that makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
And then
as a rights holder, as a license, like it's a licensing mechanism.
Yeah.
So the utility is so small. Like it's very specifically for digital content rights management. And if you want to make it about physical rights management, that's fine too, right? Real estate contracts, tickets for events, but it has to represent a one-of-one right to something, right?
Yeah.
And then from there you can license out, you can, if you own it, then you can decide what people can do with it. You can decide where you sell it, that you can decide what it's paid for. And when they get it, they essentially have whatever rights you associated with it. And so it's like I could see it being sort of a rights management tool that gives authentication to non-persons. Right now we have like you can log in and it's like me and I'm authenticated. But there's not a lot of there's no digital solution other than NFTs that like authenticate the game, the license. Like I when I download a flat icon for my UI, I'm building out a UI, interface and a user interface, and so I go to flat icon. I have a subscription. I pay $10 a month or whatever it is, and then I download the icon. Well, then I also download the license and I put it in my little folder for that app I'm making. But like that license is just like this PDF sitting like it's there's no like I could copy that and like totally fake a license. Like that is not hard to do. I don't do it, but or so then if the maker of that icon wants to say, hey, you're using my icon, show me that you have that license, I show them the PDF and they're like, oh, it looks like all my other ones. So NFTs, there could be a way for me to essentially register with the NFT decentralized validation, if you will, of my permission to use that thing. So that's the answer to the question. Is like that's where I see NFTs actually making sense. But cryptocurrency and like anything speculative related to crypto is gambling. It's poker. You're playing a game. It's a game. It's not actually valuable. There's no underlying reality. It doesn't tie back to land. So, like there's no real thing.
So I was almost wondering if the gambling part of it, the speculation part of it, was almost a necessary evil at the beginning of the tech, just to prove that it can't be copied, right? Like, oh wow, like one Bitcoin is worth, at its peak, it was like almost $70,000. Nobody can just go and create from thin air another Bitcoin, right? Or nobody can like hack mining Bitcoin like that. It's almost like the speculation which drove the prices up so high made it so that like there's immense financial incentives for the smartest people to like break the system. But it kind of in a sense proved that, okay, this is pretty robust. Like this whole cryptography thing actually works, And so I hope, like you're saying, I hope the speculation will disappear, right? And the utility will take over, because then I think, there is some powerful utility there. But as long as there's gambling and speculation on it, it's going to be a little bit tough to get the utility part of it working.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that the other element of Web 3.0 and Web 3, the decentralization of it, like, it's a hot take, maybe, but I don't personally think that one person working by themselves is like 10 people working individually towards a goal, for example, is more powerful than 10 people working together towards a goal, if that makes sense. Like, I think there's a value or a strength in a centralization of a working together. A community is stronger than an individual. It takes a village, to raise the whole thing. Like, I think that there's this interesting, like, it's like anti-government, establishment, anti-corporation, on one end of a spectrum, and on the other end, it's like corporations are people too, And so, like, I'm kind of on the end of the spectrum that like believes that, like, I believe in incorporating, I believe in entities, I believe in community, I believe in this like togetherness, and I think things are accomplished when we're working together towards things. And I think that there's just like this really, like if you were to just drill onions or whatever you want to call it, layers all the way down, there's just a core principle there that I think is hard to articulate, maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I believe that centralization, hub and spoke centralization. So I believe in like sharding a database so that it's easy to access in different, parts of the globe, etc. Like I believe that there's that on the spectrum of like one server in Silicon Valley versus like a server in everybody's basement, like I think that there's somewhere on that spectrum there's an efficiency where like what's the most optimal, where it's like it's efficient but it's affordable, it's accessible. And so like I think that like again I'm a utility person, and so I think that there's utility that's found in a very healthy amount of centralization when it comes to like redundancy and scalability and which all of that drives accessibility. So if I own my own data but I can't afford a RAID stack, like some sort of like 3 terabytes of like backups to backups to backups that are in different physical locations, so that I can so I get like that we're decentralizing into this like using blockchain, like sort of like solve some of those problems, but then it's like it's still just so inefficient compared to like having somebody who's an expert who's good at, who knows what they're doing, Facebook,
exactly.
Amazon,
the
farm.
The price of decentralization right now is very high in inefficiency. Right? Because it is such a tough problem, but it also, because of that, it's got a very tough price. Energy price, complexity price, you name it. I think like one of the things I was thinking about for like Web3 and NFTs and all that kind of stuff that might make sense would be identity. Right? So if your profile picture, your username, your account was stored as an NFT, right? That was only attached to your wallet. Whenever you go onto, how right now you can like log in with Google or log in with Facebook or log in with Microsoft, like those are all centralized entities, right? So if there was another option on all of these different websites, like log in with your MetaMask, then it's like, well, okay, it's my wallet. It's not a company. It's not Google. It's not my Google profile or my Facebook profile or my Apple profile. It's something that no company really owns. It's just my profile, right, that lives on the blockchain. And nobody else can copy that. Nobody else can log in as me unless they have my wallet, which would be a pretty big deal, right? But in general, I tend to agree there are efficiencies with like collaboration, right, that you don't get when you try to do things individually. So I think it's not all one way or all the other way. I think there's probably a good balance to be had.
So would you say, like, what are your thoughts on let's just call them categories, because I don't really know what else to call them.
Sure.
Or because like classes of types maybe, but like the utility, the future utility. Like, let's say everything's been optimized as much as we can. But I'm sure there's more ways to optimize, but it seems like most of the ways to optimize just sort of push it back towards centralization. So let's just say right now this is like as good as it gets, unless we want to start layer 2, which is centralization. So, for the most part. So let's say you have item authentication. You have user authentication.
Yeah.
And you have content. Because I think that's where the issue is if I'm going to get all, like, if you want to have enough data to feed an AI machine, something that can learn off of data, are you, the owner of that data, able to store that? Like, does it make sense from a content standpoint? I think is what I'm trying to ask. Authentication makes sense to me with NFT, with blockchain. But what does content and blockchain make sense?
Like the way they're being used now, like the Bored Apes and stuff like that, like the pictures. You're saying?
Yeah, the pictures, but also just like, without having the central repository, without having a database to like go through that where everything's classified, everything's the same, everything like it's usable data for like really advanced computing. Like can that happen in a decentralized data environment?
I think it could, but I don't think that's the best use case for it, right? Like, I know there's a lot of people that are trying to do like decentralized social media, and I'll admit I don't really understand a whole lot of it, but basically it's like, imagine Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, but without a company behind it. It's all happening on the blockchain, right? So there's no like company, like, so I haven't really looked into it deeply enough, but just thinking about it, I'm like, wow, that seems super inefficient. Like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I think where I see things potentially being a good idea is more in terms of standards and interoperability. So like zooming way into like my specific use case. So we're doing a laser tag game, right? And there's this idea out there where you've got these avatars for metaverses, right? And they're standardized avatars that live on the blockchain, right? So it's your identity, or not your identity, but there's these NFTs basically that are interoperable. So to me, like, that makes sense. Like, okay, there's this avatar. You can kind of think about it maybe as a content. I'm not quite sure. But this avatar works in this metaverse and it works in this other metaverse. So if our laser tag game chooses to adopt that standard, then now all of a sudden they can bring their avatars into our game as well. But the players at the end of the day own those avatars and they can use them anywhere. So it's more of, the blockchain could be seen as like, hey, let's rally around this standard. A company doesn't own it. Like in the past, companies own standards, right? But in this case, a company doesn't own it. It's just on the blockchain, and nobody can delete it or whatnot. It's a standard that we can adopt that's cross compatible. So that's a potential, like, may go somewhere, right? We're not seeing a whole lot of it yet, but that might be something else as well.
Yeah. And again, so like for me, I feel like that goes back to, in some ways, authentication. Yeah. Because you're not storing a chat, you're not storing, conversations, you're not storing, purchases with records and buying history, things, Amazon's, users also bought is like powered from Amazon having all that data, so like that goes away in my mind unless users can like store what they bought in certain ways that like other like companies could tap into to see purchase history or medical history or so like I could see a future where like a user has data if it's standardized in a consumable way but it's the standardization that I feel like corporations aren't incentivized to there's no monetary incentive for corporations to start adopting that type of data standard, right? But I could see in a reverse world, some alternate metaverse or a multi-metaverse,
multiverse,
a multi-metaverse, where like we have this this is the standard. This is you have your Bluetooth standards, you have your IoT standards, you have your data standards, and it's like there's this universally understood classification protocol, and like so then I think users could carry all that data, that you could still have a functional Amazon that's good at recommending things, and you could have a functional But is it the goal of the decentralized mafia to say,
No,
yeah, like, do they want an Amazon?
no,
It
they
seems
don't.
like they want to tear that down.
Yeah, I think most, I mean, I can't speak to everyone, obviously, but most of the sentiments from what I've read is that anyone who's for decentralization is all for no data, complete anonymity, and like, don't
Yeah.
track me kind of thing. Like, I don't want my data up there, you know? So, yeah, I think that crowd kind of goes in the opposite direction. So, yeah, I think there's a fundamental, like, uh, yeah, uh, opposition, you know, between these different ideals.
Yeah, like I'm watching Hulu, or no, we're watching Amazon Prime is like Free or something. Julie and I are watching a show on there, and like every single commercial is Skyrizi, which is like a drug for people who have Crohn's disease, and
Hmm.
then Verizon 5G wireless, which they don't have in our area. So I don't have Crohn's disease, and I don't have, thank you, Jesus, but and then I don't have, and I can't do the Verizon thing, like, and it's every commercials. It's like so irrelevant, and I'm like, man, just
Yeah.
take my data, please take my data, and give me something that matters to me.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
I think that like taking away some of the advancements that have happened in 2.0 for like the
Hmm.
sake of nobody knowing anything about you. It's our hubris, it's our ego that says that Google cares so much about me as a person. No, they,
Hmm.
I get it. Like it's like, oh, this data means that, and then they can parse it and say, here's a good
Yeah.
recommendation, and then you're like, wow, Google knows me,
Yeah.
and it's better that way. So that's the side of the spectrum I'm on. So it's like I agree with a lot of the principles of like authentication. So to your point with this avatar, if you have a MetaMask login with MetaMask and you have your OBJ, your GLB, your, like, you can upload whatever sizes you want. They're all standardized. It's all, and so anybody who wants to implement MetaMask's protocols, like, MetaMask's authentication protocols can pull in like the appropriate 3D model, the appropriate 2D
Yeah.
model, like Gravatar. I
Oh, I like
signed up
that.
for. No. That's a thing. Like I signed up
Oh,
like
is it
10 years
really?
ago for it. Yeah, and
What?
it was
I'll have to look into
you put
that.
in your. It's not 3D models, so don't get too excited. But like they have you put your name in, you put your email, you put your picture, and then like when you sign up, you can like you would provide it to sites that used Gravatar, and then it would just
Hmm.
automatically have all your stuff. Well, Google does that now out of the box. I don't know
Hmm.
whatever happened to Gravatar. I think it still exists, but like
Hmm.
right now I'm working on a login flow on a website, and I have signing with Google, and as of March, so 1 month from now, they're forcing everybody in the MERN stack, like anybody who's doing like authentications on like with React and stuff, they all have to use the new Google sign-in credential, where instead of
Hmm.
getting back all the data, you get back a token. You send that token to
Hmm.
the back end, and then you authenticate from the back end, and then you get the data. Then you create your user, and now every time uh, you want to authenticate, like from Google, like instead of having the password in the email, it sends that token. And what I'm getting at is it comes back with like my image and name and email and all these things from Google. But then if I like create a user and log in like the standard way, obviously they haven't sent a picture yet, so it doesn't have the picture, right? Well,
Yeah.
it's not a far leap to like, when you're signing in to say these are the resources I need back, what are the
Yeah.
available file types, and like pulling in 3D objects, etc. You could do that with items, and you could do that with people,
Hmm.
and that's what NFTs are right now.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
like, so it's not
Yeah.
unrealistic to have decentralized authentication of things. It takes a
Yeah.
lot longer, but it allows people to sort of have their own data. But I don't see anywhere on this Web 3.0 list here, uh, like users monetize their data like that. the thing that needs to exist for that to be a thing, that's the one I would push to 4.0. I don't think
Yeah, I can see
3.0 is
that.
going to have the ability to monetize data until data has protocols where there's an efficient,
Yeah.
standardized way to actually monetize data.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And like, how are you going to store that data? Is it private? Is it, yeah, it's a whole can of worms there.
Yeah, because if I store my data how I want to store it, and you store your data how you want to store it,
Yeah.
why would Amazon pay us for our data and not like in an unstandardized way? It has to be massive
Correct.
corporations
Yeah.
that would have the money to do AI parsing of data
Yeah.
to sort of like convert it into a standardized structure,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
is possible. I was messing with ChatGPT a little bit and was like,
Back to
what data?
ChatGPT.
Yeah, what data is this asking for? And I was just giving it these like full paragraphs of like, hey, how you doing? Can you come over tonight and bring some da 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 da? I need to know how much of such and such to buy to do da da da. Like, and I was giving it like these very complicated like paragraphs and then saying
Yeah.
one word, comma, what data is this requesting? And it was like weight, uh, quantity,
Wow.
time, like so it can parse and find,
Wow.
but the expense is so high for that
Yeah.
type of computing that this special decentralization where we all have our own data still has to, like, it almost makes it more, it makes the gap even farther because then you have to have so many more resources to do anything useful with that data.
Yeah.
So like then you're basically, it locks out all of these like startups and smaller fish, so to
Yeah.
speak, from
100%.
even being able to like create new and interesting and fun and exciting things. And so the downward
Yeah.
pressure that puts on innovation, also makes me lean towards like NFT for authentication is fine, but I don't really want a future where it's decentralized data.
Yeah, decentralized everything. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So last couple minutes here that we have. Any final thoughts on Web3? It sounds like we're even dipping into Web4 a little bit.
Right? Yeah, no, I think that this was something that was also just sort of interesting on this site.
Oh,
Where
that's
it
cool.
talks
That's a
about the
neat
different
visual.
different technologies that and like how they interact. So I think that like one of the biggest pieces here that's kind of interesting is that they're trying to sort of wrap it all in the metaverse, which makes so in this one, metaverse is around all of it, right?
Wow.
But in this one, it's like a line item in parentheses on 3.0. So I think that's kind of the heart of this whole chat, right? Is like, is metaverse part of 3.0, or does metaverse contain 3.0? Is 3.0 the metaverse? And in this scenario, it would almost seem as though the metaverse is kind of synonymous with Web 3.0.
I don't think it should be. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, so my hot take is that the metaverse is a misnomer because it's an entity. I think that a metaverse is a three-dimensional world, an MMORPG, right? Massive multiplayer role-playing game, right? This massive multiplayer online part, the MMO part of MMORPG.
Yes.
Like, so I think that like, you have your everybody has their things that they tie in. You've got your avatar, you've got your name, you've got your coins, you've got your whatever, and then, but it's like, it still has like central repositories. You still have users in most cases, unless you want to just like release it and make nothing from it, which is, it's hard to, that's not good business. You're not making, so then you've got maybe a coin that facilitates all the transactions. And so you have your different monetization models. But at the end of the day, like, Facebook's metaverse is obviously centralized. And
Yep.
Decentraland's metaverse is obviously decentralized, but not
Arguably.
quite so obviously. Arguably decentralized, right? That came into the news. But it's like, so I think that, like, at the end of the day, there's got to be a utility in a metaverse, right? So I believe that Web 3.0 consists of Web 3 and metaverses, which are not tied to glasses. I don't think that it has to be a wearable. I think that you can be in a metaverse in Roblox on your phone, on your computer. I think that at the end of the day, metaverse is just a fancy name for something that already existed. I think that that's just
totally.
a game that has a bunch of users in it. Whether you want to make it less fun and have nothing to do in it, or if you want it to be really fun, or if you want it to be a concert venue, I think that the extended reality form factor changes some things in a fun way to give you new ways to experience things. It's an experience augmentation, right? But I think at the core, the metaverse is one thing. It can have a coin. It can have its own monetization model. It can be centralized or decentralized. It can, but at the end of the day, it's basically a website in space.
Yeah, in 3D.
in 3D, a website in 3D, a 3D website.
Yeah.
If websites are 2D, the metaverse is 3D, right? Metaverse is a 3D website.
I think that is very well put, Levi, and I agree with that. I think that's fantastic, and I would say we've done pretty good justice in the last hour to Metaverse and Web 3.0 and Web 3. I think still you probably could easily talk for like a week straight on the nuances on all of these, but I'd say that's pretty good. So I think that pretty much wraps up episode 4, and we'll see you guys next week for episode 5. Thank you so much, Levi. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.